Right, you're now live, so you can say exactly what you just said, Mr. Chief Zookeeper.
What a lot of nonsense, this tech stuff. Just give me an audience where I can speak, a green screen. I'm sitting in Hawaii or I'm on some bloody beach. It's all nonsense.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed that you toned it down to nonsense when you knew you were live, because that's not the word you were using before.
That is so unfair. I'm a professional speaker.
And you were late.
Hold on one second. 12:30, as it shows on there. That is not late, okay?
12:20 for the pre.
Anyway, thank you very much for part 2 coming on again. It's a pleasure having you on the show a couple of weeks ago. Got loads and loads from it. The comments were amazing. Zoe Bywater, I don't know what you've done to her, but literally she does not want to run naked down Bedford High Street with all her team. So I've never seen somebody working so incredibly hard on their videos, which is incredible. So
but you know what's interesting, Stephen? When you set someone's commitment and consequence so large that then they're willing to play the game. See, Neil's consequences, I won't have a cup of tea after 3 o'clock or something. So then he fails loads of things, if the truth be known. But you set a proper consequence. No, seriously, Stephen, if you set a proper consequence, that's the problem. And if everyone who was listening to this really were to write down what's the consequence for even simple goals of me not achieving it, you'd realize that people will do it. The problem is we let ourselves off the hook so badly. I mean, joking about, we're starting this at 12:30. I was here at 12:30, 12:29. I'm ready to go. But if the consequence would have been $1 million to charity, I'd have been here at 12:15.
Yeah.
But there was no consequence. So I fly by the seat of my pants. And even when there was traffic on the M25 and I was going to Surrey to see my parents, I'd leave at 11, hope to get there at 12. But for $1 million, I'd have left at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or gone the night before. And I think, Stephen, we've got to make a decision for all estate agents and letting agents and people in the property game that if you want 2021 to be a real success, you've got to, first of all, be accountable, but set goals where there's massive consequences. Otherwise, you're just not going to do it. And we just need to let people know it's just never going to happen. Don't play this game of big goals and big, hairy, audacious goals and gazillion goals. You're not going to, because if we'd have done that, we wouldn't need all these podcasts every week to motivate and inspire people. And you and I would be out of a job.
Exactly. So let's welcome a few people. So Jeremy, how good's your singing voice, Neil and Chief Zookeeper? It's Jeremy's birthday today. Can you sing happy birthday?
Happy birthday to you. There you go.
There you go. Chris, thanks for joining us as well. Stephen Baker, thanks for joining.
He's on day 29.
There you go.
The question is, are you going to get to day 366, Zoe? Is it going to be a year? And given this, I know this was the leap year, but, add the extra day.
She's doing well, isn't she? She's doing well. So you touched on goals. Okay, so and you've got an amazing podcast. Your best year starts here. So what should you be doing, okay, to start setting goals for 2021? What advice? Hi, Pete Lawrence. Thanks for joining us. What tips can you give? Hi, Mark Worrell. Thanks for joining. What should we have to play this for every single
person that joins? Hello.
Yes. Hello, Chief. They're all saying hello, Chief Zookeeper. What can I say?
Do you know what? Get a life, start writing your goals. That's the first thing you do, is stop all this nonsense of being polite,
right,
and be focused.
And I actually think the thing to do before that, and you've probably, if you've listened to our podcast, Your Best Year Starts Here, you'd have heard me and Nigel talk about this. I actually think one of the first things to do before you start figuring out what you want is actually get in the right headspace by figuring out what you've already done. So actually take some time, grab a sheet of paper and write down all of your successes in your life to date. And I don't just mean in the last week or in the last month. I mean, go right back to day one. What are all the things you thought you could never do that you've already done? Because all the things you thought were impossible at some point that you've now achieved show you that most of the things you think are impossible now aren't. If you put enough effort into it and you put the right focus on it and you are committed to your, to the outcomes you're trying to create. And like Nigel says, you put the right consequences in place for not doing it. You put the right rewards in for achieving it. You give yourself milestones with ways to celebrate when you hit them. If you put all that stuff in place, great. But it starts by actually believing things are possible. And I think so many people limit their own potential based on what they think is possible. But if you look back, you've already done stuff that you used to think was impossible. And if you don't believe me, take it back as simple as something like when you're a kid going, I can't tie my own shoes. I need someone to do it for me. Yeah, I'm never going to be able to figure this out. I'm never going to be able to tie a pair of shoes. Whereas most people now, they put their shoes on, they tie them without even thinking about it. You know,
I'm going to go much easier than that. Seriously. I think if people want to start goal setting in their estate agency letting business, they need to ask a couple of questions to their existing clients first to find out what business they're in. So one of the questions I always like to ask people is, what did you like about buying from us in the first place? And you'll be amazed when I tell you what question number 2 is, that it's not that complicated. Because question number 2 is, why did you buy from us in the first place? Mm-hmm. And Stephen, you'll be amazed that some of the reasons why people came to us in the first place is not because of your advertising. It's not because of all the wonderful accolades you got. It's because you were the only one available who answered the phone.
Yeah.
Well, so now you know that. At least be aware that all this stuff you've done may not be where all your focus is. So I'm always saying to people, why do you come to me? And most people come to me because I'm irritational, I'm motivational, I'm inspirational, I'm in your face, and I'm not nice. And I'm okay with that. But when I ask them, why did you come to me in the first place? The reasons are bizarre. You were the only one available on the 24th of February. We heard some stuff about you. We didn't know what you did. And then you want to ask people, so what problems did you have before you came to us? Mm. So if you were a letting agent and you had a guy who had multiple properties and you said to them, what problems did you have before you came to us? Well, I had problems with my managing agent. I had problems with whatever. Well, now you know what some of those issues are. And then you ask that same person, how do we help you solve those problems? Because you need to know what you're doing for your applicants, your clients, your vendors. And then the ultimate question is, how are things better for you now? Because you're going to get 2 results from that. One, people are going to tell you some good stuff, or you're going to find out you're not as good as you thought you were. But more importantly, you've got a base to start your whole marketing for 2021 to know how good you are. If I don't want to go into song, but if you don't know where you are, how are you going to get to where you want to get to? And the problem is, Neil and I might talk about great goal setting plans, but you've got to fundamentally know where you are. I used to have something in my car, Stephen, called Smart Nav. So most people have got a sat nav system. So on my Smart Nav system, I used to push a button and it went through to a live call center. And do you know the question that the woman, because it was mainly women who answered, do you know the question she used to ask me, Stephen?
Go on.
Where are you going? Where are you going? She never ever asked me, where have you come from? What issues have you had? She didn't care. What she wanted was, where do you want to get to? So you've kind of got to know where you're starting from and then where you want to get to. But most people are going to spend way too long on the stuff that doesn't really impact their business. So for everyone who's listening, where are you right now? What are your numbers? What's the real truth? Have you spoken to your partner? So Stephen, I know you're married. Neil, you've got loads of issues, so we're not even going to go there with you. But Stephen,
love you too, mate. Love you too.
But the very first question you want to ask over Christmas, and this is a slightly peculiar because most people have been at home a lot longer, is what do we want as a unit? And Neil, you've got a unit, with your daughter and your son. It's a unit of some sort. What do you want for 2021? Mm-hmm. Because unless you've got support from your kids, your wife, husband, to go into the workplace, you might be surprised. That's not what people want. I always remember years ago, when I was taking the kids on holiday, I said to the kids, the reason I work so hard is that we can turn left on a plane. Okay? And this is what my kids said. We'd prefer to turn right if we can do it more often. And then I said, but I work so hard because I'm doing this for you. And my kids genuinely said this to me, then don't. So we have this thing of whether it's father, mother, head of the household, we're doing all this for them. Well, maybe they don't want that. Maybe what they want is to sit down at 6 o'clock every night, have dinner, no phones at the table, and just discuss anything for a couple of hours. But we're working really hard. We're not going to get home till 8 o'clock at night so we can make sure we have Chinese takeaway twice a week. There are people that don't want that. And Stephen, I promise you, you do not know what your wife's top 5 goals are for next year. I promise you, you don't. and I'll do £1 million bet with you right now that you don't know the answer.
Right, I'm going upstairs. I'll be back in 5 minutes. You
Yeah,
two talk, and I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, but you see, unless that's what you did, I put money on. If you wrote down her top 5 goals and then you asked her what they were, you won't get them all right. And you've lived with her for a couple of weeks, I'm guessing.
Yeah, at least one.
Okay, but think about this now. If you're a manager or a leader of an estate agency or a letting agency, do you know what your staff want for next year? Just giving them a 10% pay rise isn't the answer at all. I was working with an estate agent in Cornwall literally 2 days ago, and some of the staff would like Friday afternoons off and then Monday at 4 because they've got to. You're like, it doesn't often happen in London. They've got to muck out their horses. I didn't even know what that meant. Unfortunately, I heard the word muck out their horses. I thought it was something else. But I'm just saying, I had no clue what they were talking about. It would never have entered my head as one of the top goals for 3 of these people. They need to leave before sun sets so they could look at their horses. But if you don't know that, how do you support your team?
Okay, so best questions to find out, because a lot of agents do have one-to-ones with them, but they think everybody that comes into work are motivated just by money, and you're spot on. It isn't about the money.
It's never about the money. The money is the nice to have that goes with it. It's never just about the money. And anyone that tells you that they are motivated by money, they're not. They're motivated by what they're going to do with the money. The money itself is irrelevant.
But just as an aside, Stephen, the best thing you can do for the poor is not be one of them.
Be one of them, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, let's get real. We all need money because that's the way our world operates, right? But no, I don't think I've ever met anybody that their sole motivation is money. It's what they think the money stands for. And that might be status. That might be what they want to spend it on. It doesn't really matter what the meaning they give to money is, but it's not the money itself that acts as the motivator. It's being able to buy some time back, or it's being able to have more holidays, or it's whatever. There's something I thought of a minute ago when Nigel was talking, which is a story that you've probably both heard, and most of the people watching this have probably heard before. But I'll share it anyway. And it's the little kid that goes up to their dad and says, "Dad, how much do you earn in an hour? Yeah, how much does an hour of your time cost?" And the dad says, "I don't know, £250, whatever the amount is, And the kid says, "Okay, Dad, can I borrow £100, please?" And the dad says, "Yeah, okay." And gives the kid £100. And next thing you know, they're watching this kid pull out like an envelope that's already got 150 quid in it, and they start counting this money out. And the dad loses his rag. He's like, "How dare you ask me for £100 when you've already got all that money?" And it's only, after he's calmed down and stuff, and the kid basically hands over the £250 and says, "Dad, can I have an hour of your time?"
Just for the record, that story is in my book, The Impact Code.
Oh, there you go, see?
Oh, there you go.
There you go. But it's, it's a really powerful story because it's there's a few things for me, but one is it's the perception of what money stands for. But it's also the fact that, time is more valuable than money, and time's one thing you can never get back.
And you know how kids spell the word love, don't you?
Yeah.
D-I-N-E. It's that concept. That's what people want. When Neil and I do our podcasts, one of the things we're trying to say is that there's financial, because we need some money. I don't want to go into Maslow's hierarchy. And if you really read Maslow's stuff, there are 13 stages to success, not just that little triangle where Wi-Fi is at the bottom, and in my case, chocolate is even a further fundamental issue. But what we try and do, Neil and I, is to look at every aspect of people's lives and say, if you've got your base right at home, and you've got, 50 quid in your pocket, and you've got some food in the fridge, and you've got a family unit that works, whatever your family unit is, you can then go to work, and as you know, I'm going to use this phrase, and be in the room. Because the problem is, if your mind is elsewhere and then you go to work, hard to focus. And then when you do try and start to focus, where's your energy going to be? And people right now have got so many distractions going on. We've got to make sure that people understand that people want simple stuff. They want some fresh air. They want to work from home if they can, at least 1 or 2 days a week. And until March, Stephen, can you imagine we'd be going into a studio to do this? Because we could never do this at home, because how dare we? We've got to be professional. Now, HSBC have just said to their staff, we don't expect you back till 2022.
Wow.
Not even next year. They just don't expect it.
Yep.
So if you've got a bank that size who are saying they don't need you back, and you talk about 50,000 people, our little offices, so much more could be done if we did one thing. And the key word here, Stephen, is trust. And there's a lovely line that says, if you trust an individual enough to hire them, you should trust them enough to get their work done where or whenever they want to.
It's interesting. Earlier in my career, I had
I have that poster, please.
What?
The one you read that.
The one that I was just reading from. Okay,
Yes.
Hold on. It's a tiny piece of paper because I always get the last line wrong. So I've just put it up there. It's badly written, but Stephen, I will send it to you. Okay. But it's about trust.
But it's interesting. Earlier in my career, I separated from my first wife when my son was 3 years old, and I ended up living on the opposite side of the country from him because of career stuff, work stuff. And every other weekend, I would pick him up from school on a Friday. I'd have him for the weekend and I'd take him back on the Sunday. And it became a non-negotiable for me that every other Friday I finished work by 11 a.m. And so, I actually had a couple of jobs that I got headhunted for that when I was in the interviews, I literally started off by saying, okay, well, before we get into this, I've got one thing that's non-negotiable. So let me make this one thing clear. If you're okay with that, then we can carry on and have this conversation. If not, then we're both wasting our time here. And that is every other Friday, I finish work at 11 a.m. Now, you can call me when I'm in the car driving halfway across the country. That's okay. But don't ever think you're going to schedule anything in my calendar every other Friday from 11 a.m. onwards. And if you're okay with that, then, let's carry on this thing. And in each scenario where that came up, I got offered the job because I'd been upfront and shown that trust. And it wasn't like they didn't get the job done. The work still happened. It just didn't happen every other Friday afternoon. And there was probably the odd occasion where there'd be like some really important, presentation as part of a tender or something where I would rearrange my weekends. But that probably happened maybe once, twice a year because I didn't allow it to interfere with my relationship with my son. I made that the priority.
Yeah.
But Neil, can you imagine if every single time someone started a new job within the world of a state agency, that was the question. But then every 3 months you sat down, and it's really interesting. I was emceeing an event yesterday, and someone started talking about netwalking, not networking, netwalking. And imagine in your netwalk with one of your teams, which you do every 3 months, you checked in and said, one, how are you? Has anything changed in the last 3 months? Financially, material-wise, marital-wise, whatever. And what can we do to give you the best chance, and this is the key word, Stephen, to give you the best chance of you bringing your best version of you to work?
Yeah.
Neil and I have both had different issues in the last year, health, marital, and all the rest. So, I'm going in for another operation next week, Stephen, on my nose. So the best version of me is not going to be doing a podcast next Thursday. Neil knows this. So we met this week. We did a lot of setup. We got a green screen. We did lots of stuff because I won't be at my best next week. So it's no use saying I'm determined and I'm focused and I've got all that stuff. That's the bottom line truth. I won't be. Yep. If you're going through financial issues, you're going through marital issues, that's the wrong time to be having a review. It's no different to doing personality assessment. I've got a personality assessment tool. Sorry?
I thought I knew you had books, but you got a tool now as well.
Yeah. You can go and do like a little, I want to say quiz. It's a bit more than a little quiz, but you can go do like a whole assessment thing and it'll tell you which animal you are. It's really cool.
But Stephen, here's the point. But if you were to fill it in the day before you were going into bankruptcy, the day before your divorce, the day before removal of, whatever it could be, you're going to get different responses because your mind is in the wrong space. So sometimes I'm arguing with someone as a chief zookeeper, literally, Stephen, as the chief zookeeper, someone saying to me, I'm not that type of animal. I said, well, based on what you filled in, you might be, but that's because of where your headspace is. So think about this for anyone who's listening. If you have a team of people, remember your job is to lead them to success, is to lead them in 2021. Where are they? So you wouldn't feed the monkeys, raw fish because you're not going to get the right results from it. But that's what we're doing in a estate agency. We start the new year, we might give them a new desk, and then we give them an iPhone 12 because we think that's going to impress them. But they've got issues with their 3-year-old who's not eating, who's not sleeping at night. Well, let's give them the 150 quid. Go and see a consultant. Go and see a sleep consultant. I've just worked with someone who does sleep hygiene. Okay, cost me about £150, but it's potentially going to change my life. I mean, I'm not saying it's all about money, but instead of giving me a new iPhone, I'd much rather have a sleep hygiene to tell me why I'm having issues at night.
It's interesting.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Right now,
so Stephen, how is your life between 1 and 10 right now with everything that's going on for you?
4.
Okay. What needs to happen for Neil and I to get you to a 5?
Well, personally wise, there's nothing you can do because there's nothing that can change.
Okay.
Business wise, I'd most probably at a 9.
No, but let's go personal.
Okay, so let's go personal.
What can we do to get you to a 4.5?
Okay. So for me, it would to help get me advice as to get more help around the house to make my life better.
Okay, so if we said we could do that, and we'll go offline because the whole of North London doesn't need to hear your stuff. But imagine we could support you with some of that.
Yes.
How would you feel if next week we came back with some suggestions? How would you feel, regardless if you take it up, our offer, but how would you feel if we were having that conversation?
I feel so much better. I feel as a leader, you care about me, you're interested in me, you want to know what's going on, and you're taking the time and trouble to find out. And I suppose you're right. Most leaders are just looking at their targets. Can you hit these numbers? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you working longer hours? Where actually, you're right, there may be something that we're not aware of. That if we
give you more money,
let me jump in.
I give you more money, Stephen, but you can't spend time at home to deal with the stuff you've got going. How are you going to feel?
Yeah.
If I'm going to give you even more money,
I'm
going to really incentivize you.
It's not the answer. I mean, let me jump in for a minute. I was doing some work recently, some video work with a letting agent, and I was working with all their branch managers. And one of the branch managers has a child that is about a year old. Okay, and it's the dad that I'm filming. But he's got the filming slot that's late in the day, so it's like 4 p.m. This is a few months ago now, so it's really warm in the office we're in because we've been in it filming all day long. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's actually been awake since 4 a.m. because of his newborn child. And oddly enough, he's finding it hard to come across confidently on camera and say the right things and not stutter and everything else. And it was obvious to me, knowing him, that he could have done this thing a lot better. Okay. So, my immediate thing was, hey, look, you don't really seem yourself right now. Is there something going on? Do we need to reschedule this, do it another day, whatever? And he said, yeah, thanks for asking, because actually I've been awake since 4 o'clock this morning. The baby's had me up. It's like, fine, there you go. There's your answer. Let's not do this now. And next time we do something with you, let's put you early in the day, because if the same thing happens again, at least you'll still be fresh. And it's just taking, like Nigel said, it's just taking the time to go, what's going on in your life that's affecting the frame of reference of the thing we're trying to do right now. And that's it.
You asked originally, what questions do you ask? You just ask better questions instead of asking for, you don't have to go deep. So what do you want? What would make your life easier? What can we do to support you to be your best version? What things are getting in the way of you bringing your best version to work? Are you parking your car too far away? Do we need to get you an Uber? Whatever it might be, most things that I've worked with, I've just worked out, I've been working 42 years, okay? And what I realize is most of the issues aren't that different. We work too many hours in an office without getting some sunlight or having breaks. We're not hydrated enough. We don't see our family enough. Yes, everyone, including you and I, Stephen, would like another £50. I don't dispute that. But I'd have £25 less if I could be outside a few more hours a day, if I could be less Zoom calls, less StreamYard, whatever it is, if I could just have a bit more fun. We've got to have that base. I get that. but most people are not getting their basic needs met.
Another really good example of this, actually, Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. Okay. Yeah. Something that came up when she was pregnant, and this is going back some years ago, and it's in one of the books that she wrote. She was in the office one day, and she just commented to Mark Zuckerberg about how grateful she was to have a parking space near the front door because of her role, because of how hard she was finding it walking from the car to her office while she was heavily pregnant. And Mark's response was, "You're not the only pregnant woman in this place." And they put pregnancy parking in their car park near to the building.
Okay, so Neil, can I go on one further from your story? So
Yeah.
I spoke to Sheryl Sandberg in Florida at a conference 5 years ago. Okay. Do you know what her rider was? This is more for Stephen because we're of the same faith. You don't understand this type of stuff. Okay.
I dread to think.
Okay. What was her number one rider? We were speaking in Florida for her to speak at this event. Now, she's one of the most powerful women in the world. Okay. What was her rider for speaking at the conference in Florida?
Diet Cokes, chicken soup.
Nope. Her parents to come and hear her speak.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is, it wasn't that complicated to organize. I mean, there were 700 people. We could find 2 more seats. Does that make sense? Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, to send, she had 3 bodyguards. She had 4 personal assistants. But her rider was, she wanted her parents, because they lived in Fort Lauderdale, to come and hear her speak. It was a closed event. What I'm saying,
you know what I'm taking from this is all about just asking better questions, how much more you can find out. And, listening to you on your podcast when you're turning up to speaking, if you've got a Diet Coke there with your name on and Nigel Risner and you've got your chocolate, you're happy because you know that people have taken
Cadbury's chocolate and Diet Coke for him.
Look at that. My own name on account of my full name. I mean, how happy am I with that?
So your clients have listened to you, and that's the whole point.
Stephen, I've got to go in a minute, but Stephen,
I'm grateful for your time.
No, but you've just hit the nail on the head. When you feel listened to and you feel supported by your leader, and when you feel nurtured and when you feel cared for, the results of the people, especially in the letting world, who are relatively young, okay? You're much older, Stephen. You're like on the way out, in that world. But for us youngsters, those people want simple stuff. When if the nightclubs are open and you gave everyone 20 quid to go for a drink in a nightclub, or you said they can leave, they don't have to work on their birthday or the day after their birthday because they've got hammered or whatever it might be, most of that stuff would not be complicated. But we're so busy in trying to impress people with the stuff that we want, we've lost being a zookeeper. So have a wonderful Christmas, a wonderful Hanukkah. I wish the family well. I need to leave. I'm going to leave with Neil because he's going to have loads of stuff to say.
I don't know loads, but you have prompted something in my head. So, yeah, that's cool.
So I'm going to love and leave you all. But be good.
Have a good one. Good luck next week. Hope it all goes well. Big success tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing that just came in my head during what Nigel was saying then, and I think this is a really important thing, especially for people in sales, right? It's important for everybody. It's important for leaders, full stop, but especially for people in sales. So many salespeople focus on trying to be understood. As in, I want you to understand my proposition. I want you to understand what I offer to you, okay? What you should focus on is making sure your client feels understood. It's not about them understanding you. It's about them thinking you understand them. And I think very often as a leader or a manager, the same thing applies. It's not about your team understanding what you want. It's your team feeling like you understand them and what matters to them. And simple little things can make a huge difference. Installing a water filter, putting a fridge in a break room, Nigel with his Diet Coke. I mean, I'll give you another really simple example for me. I don't drink alcohol. Okay. I'm almost literally, I'm 9 days away from being 6 years sober, right? Just looked at the
Congratulations.
9 days away from being 6 years sober. I don't share that to talk about sobriety. I share that from the point of view of, I don't drink alcohol. I've been invited to a lot of like business functions and things where, there's a champagne reception and most of the people that I'm close to know I don't drink because they've spent time around me and they've seen that I don't drink, right? One of the things that means a big difference to me is if I rock up somewhere and they're giving out glasses of champagne and then they give me like a ginger beer, or they give me like, you know, sparkling water with lime juice in it, or something that they know I drink, but it's been thought about. You know, because sometimes you rock up to these events, especially if there's like bottles on the table and there's only alcoholic drinks. Whereas the events that have always made me feel special have put like a bucket of soft drinks. And even if it's stuff I don't consume, sometimes it's a bucket full of stuff where I'm like, oh God, how do I tell them I don't drink that stuff? The fact that it's something that is more closely aligned to how I am as a human being actually wins, you know, it scores massive points and it makes me feel special. And I think one of the best things all of us can do is learn how to make other people feel special. You know, we're all a little bit selfish and we all want to be made to feel special ourselves. But often the best thing we can do is go, well, how do I make someone else feel special? It's that, you know, there's many paradoxes in life. And for me, one of the big paradoxes is, you know, you get to keep what you give away. As in, if I make an effort to show I care for other people, I'm much more likely to end up feeling like they care for me. Whereas if I make it all about me and I'm demanding, guess what happens? My demands are probably not met. So I don't feel good, and nor do the other people that feel like I'm making demands on them. You know, and I've seen that in so many workplaces. It's kind of the difference between being a leader and a boss. You know, you get a boss that effectively is a bit of a bully. That's, you know, you'll do this my way or no way kind of thing. And, you know, you need to understand me and you need to understand why we do things here, rather than actually going, hey, do you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me listen to you. Let me understand what it is that actually makes you tick. Okay, now how do I put what we're trying to do into your model of the world so that it becomes relevant to you, so that it becomes interesting to you, so that you do feel like, you know, you're meeting your own personal needs whilst meeting the needs of this business? Because we've all met people that go to work for a paycheck. You know, and most of those people are not the most productive person in that office or in that business, are they? You know, they're the one that actually is probably a pain in everybody's ass, but they kind of do an okay job. And so we let them carry on, but that's about it. What if that same person felt like coming to work made a really positive impact on themselves and on their family and everything else? You know, and they might not even like the job. They just might like what the job stands for in their life, if that makes sense. You
Definitely.
know?
So just something that's come up in my mind. A lot of people ask me about induction when they get new staff in. You know, what have you found is, and you talk about making people feel special. So they're starting a new job. They're most probably very, very nervous. What things have you seen that actually, when people start, would be a great way of inducting them into your company and welcoming them in?
Well, let me start by giving you an example from my own life on that. Okay, so there is a company I went to work for. Oh, it's a long time ago now. It's at least 15 years ago, maybe even closer to 20 years ago. Okay, but I started working for a family-owned company where the company had been set up by a dad, effectively a guy who was the dad and one of his mates, and then his sons had bought the mate out. So it was the dad and two sons that owned the business. And the day I started in the office, and I wasn't local to the office, I was sort of field sales, area sales manager role, traveling the country, but obviously induction and stuff's in the office. My first day when I was in the office, one of the directors, one of the brothers, was on holiday. And so he was somewhere, I can't even remember where, but it was somewhere on the other side of the world. I'd been in the office 10 minutes when he called to welcome me to the company from his holiday, from his vacation. That, like, it didn't really matter what else was done that week. That was the thing that made me feel most welcomed, because somebody's actually taken time out of their break from work to welcome me into their business and into their family business, which made me feel like I was kind of part of the family. Yeah, I think for a lot of agents, estate agents, letting agents, especially where it's like a smaller business, you know, if it's your company, be present for those new starts. Spend time with them personally. You know, block out time in your calendar and you know, spend a couple of hours with them in your office, talking them through things personally, getting to know them personally, because they'll build a bond with you where you're not the boss. I mean, you are the leader, you are the owner of the business, but you're not just seen as, oh, you're the boss in the ivory tower. You're a human being that they actually build a relationship with. And if they build a relationship with you and they share a vision with you and they understand your values and they understand, what the culture you're trying to create in your organization is, and what, why your company exists in the first place, what's the backstory, all that kind of stuff. If they get all of that, they'd be way more bought into being there. But the reality is, so often we assume people know stuff. We assume people know why we exist, or we think they wouldn't care anyway. We go to one extreme or the other, but we don't share the things that probably make the biggest difference. If you've got an agency that, actually came about by accident because maybe you helped a few people find somewhere to live and they said, you should do this professionally. If that's your backstory, tell that story. If you were, I don't know, if you were ex-forces and you had a pension and you weren't sure what to do next, and you got a franchise opportunity and you thought, oh, what the hell, I'll give that a go, and then you realize the franchise model wasn't great, but you like being an agent, tell that story. Like, whatever your story is, make sure the people know how the business got to where it is today. Get them bought into, someone joined. Let me put it a different way. If you go on a date with someone, do you talk about the life that person's had? Do you talk about, oh, so have you got any brothers and sisters? So, oh, where did you go to school? Oh, where did you grow up? What did you do for, like, you find out things about people. And the more you get to know someone and the more similarities you draw from stories, the more bondage you feel with that person, right? But when's the last time you did that with a new employee? When's the last time you sat them down and said, oh, okay, so, where do you live? Okay, so who do you live with? Do you live with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, parents? Oh, okay, so what, what do you do when you're not working? What are your interests? Like, get to know someone on a human level. Get to understand if they've got some religious beliefs that means certain things aren't cool for them. Get to learn if they've got, other things in their life that, maybe they like running, maybe they hate running, maybe they've got some kind of illness that's not obvious. Maybe they, there's a multitude of things, but the more you understand someone and the more you show that you understand them, so, I mean, I'll give you a really simple example. What if you've got someone that doesn't drink coffee, but loves coffee, as in they don't drink caffeine? And what if up until now in your office, you've only ever had full strength coffee? What if you find out that they only drink decaf, and when they come in on day 2, there's now decaf? Now, it's a really, really small thing, but wouldn't it make a difference?
Oh, and you're spot on. And it's just these little things that make a massive, massive difference. Yeah. It shows that you care. It shows that you're showing an interest. It shows that you want them to be there.
Exactly. Or you got some peppermint tea because they've said that they don't, like, whatever it is, but what are the little things you can do that make a difference? Or I don't know, somebody's you've got somebody a laptop and they say, I really don't get on with a touchpad, I wish I had a mouse. You order them a mouse and it arrives the next day. And I'm giving really simple, trivial things that don't cost much money, because the reality is the things that make people feel special generally don't cost much money. There's a guy I know that almost every time he does something like this with somebody, he sends them a thank you card. I mean, I think you might know him, Stephen, right? This guy that puts these thank you cards in the post. That makes the world a difference. It really does, because it shows that someone's thinking about you. It shows that somebody cares, and you go, wow, he took the time to handwrite a card and put it in the post to me. So if he wants me to jump on his show again, will I do it? Of course I will.
It's another one though.
That's fine. but my point is, it's those little things that can make a huge difference. I've talked about this on the podcast. I'm trying to think if the episode's actually come out yet. It might not have, but
you heard me first, exclusive.
The weirdest thank you card I've ever had was for giving a refund. Now, when's the last time someone sent you a thank you card because you gave them a refund?
Yeah,
it's a pretty unusual thing, but there were specific circumstances around that refund. Okay. And I basically got this thank you card that said, thank you for doing the things you say. Because the circumstances that came up, I handled it in exactly the way I would tell somebody else to handle that same situation. But not everybody does that, right? And so I got this thank you card that said, basically, thank you for actually being who you claim to be. Thank you for doing, what you say on the tin, kind of thing. And it was really special to me to get a thank you card for something that you wouldn't normally be thanked for. You know,
Yeah,
and it's those kind of little things that make the world a difference, because it shows that, I don't know, it gives a feeling that someone understands you. It gives the feeling that someone gets you. And whether they do or not, it kind of doesn't really matter, because perception is reality. And if I feel like someone understands me, then in my world, they do. Whether they do or not, in my world, they do. And the opposite can be just as true. You know, I've worked with people where no matter what's going on, it's like, wow, you know, the only model of the world you get is your own. You do not understand what makes people tick unless it's the same thing as that makes you tick. You know, you think everybody in the world is motivated by the exact same things as you, and they're not. And you don't really care. You don't take the time to find out. You know, and we've all met people that are like that, right? You know, and it's finding it's finding compassion. You know, it's finding humility. It's taking a step back and going, this isn't all about me. You know, there's I don't want to get too like spiritual or anything like that, but my daughter about a week ago sent me 5 questions that she had as, it was like homework from school, to go and survey people on these 5 questions. And they were all kind of like, you know, how was the world made? How did we get here? Really theological kind of questions. Okay. And one of them was, you know, along the lines of, do you believe in God, or is there a God, kind of thing. And I can't remember my exact answer, but I can tell you one of the things that I wrote in it is one of the most profound things anyone's ever said to me about God. Okay. And that is, there are only 2 things you need to know about God. There is one. It's not you. And I think very often the people that lack humility and lack compassion and lack, you know, that essence of taking time to really get to know people, it's because the world revolves around them. And I think the quicker we can all realize that, yeah, sure, I'm the center of my universe because I am me. And I, you know, every single day of my life, I'm in it. You know, nobody else in my life is guaranteed to be there every single day. Nobody, right? But I am. So I do have to be a bit selfish sometimes. I do have to prioritize myself to some extent. But if I make everything about me, my life will be miserable. The more I give, the more I get, even if I don't get anything, if that makes any sense. It's that feeling of giving. It's that feeling of being of service to others that makes such a difference to our lives. And whether that's as a leader in your business, whether that's as a leader in your family, or in some other area of your personal life, the more you give, the more you ultimately gain. You know, you think about Christmas, which is coming up really soon. When you're a little kid, it's all about what gifts do you get. When you get older, doesn't that shift? And it's about watching the faces of people when they open the gifts you've chosen for them.
Yeah,
you know, it shifts. And that same principle applies to so many things in life. You know, the real gift is in the giving. It's not in the receiving.
100%.
And it's taking the time to make a difference to other people. And that ultimately for me is, you know, one of our biggest legacies in life. It's, you know, at the end of the day, we're all basically a story, right? We're all our life is the story people will tell about us when we're not here. That's it, in my opinion. And I respect that it's my opinion, and there might be people watching this who completely disagree with me. But from my point of view, you know, the stories people tell about us after we've gone, basically that's our legacy. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the person where people go, oh yeah, every single thing he ever did was all about him? You know, yeah, he was successful on the outside, but actually he was a miserable git. You know, like how do you want to be remembered? Or do you want to be, oh, one of the kindest people I've ever met, did so much for everybody else? I know which one I'd rather be.
100%.
You know, it's not about the car that's parked on the drive. It's not about the size of the house. It's not about how many holidays or what clothes or what shoes, or it's none of that. It's, you know, do I feel like in my final moments that I made a positive impact on the world around me and the people I met? Okay, and none of us can do that 100% of the time. All of us will have moments where people will hate us and we're a pain in the ass. That's life.
100%. Look,
But it's talent, isn't it?
I think yourself and Nigel have definitely shown people via your podcast, via coming on here, how you make a difference and how you make people feel, and
Cheers,
about
mate.
and being special. And for me, listening to your podcast has been absolutely phenomenal. Can't wait every Monday morning.
Thank you.
They're there and they drop, and there's loads of amazing stuff. So people, whether you're watching this now, whether you're watching it on replay, definitely download your best year starts here, because it's exceptional. It's it was about 12 minutes. I know you keep on changing it. The timer goes, the buzzer goes.
The average episode's like 12 to 15 minutes. We have the odd one that runs longer. We get the odd one that's shorter, but the average is about 12 to 15 minutes. And if you're, little confession here, but if you're like me, I very rarely listen to podcasts on the right speed. I nearly always like 1.5 times or even 2 times, depending on who it is. So, a 15-minute episode might actually only be 10.
Yeah. Good tip. Well, look, I'm really grateful for your time.
No, thank you, mate. Thanks for having me on again.
Really grateful for Nigel's time, even though he's not here.
There we go.
Thanks a lot. Have a good Christmas.
And you. And
twice. And look forward to it. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Next Monday, going to be joined by Peter Tobin, who's the ex-sales director and trainer at Foxtons, which should be fascinating. Tuesday, I am joined by Spencer Lawrence, who is one of the best letting agents in the UK, in my opinion, at Paramount Properties. And Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock, I've got David Greenspan, who I met at the NAR conference in San Francisco a year ago, who's Mr. Mindshare, and we're going to be talking about keep in touch strategies. So look forward to you joining me then. Thanks very much and have a great afternoon. Thanks again, Neil.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, mate.